This is a 2025 Porsche Macan Electric, the brand new, fully electric version of Porsche's compact crossover SUV, and, for the time being at least, one that's sold alongside the ICE-powered Macan. And aside from the obvious difference in propulsion, it's also longer, wider, and more spacious. My name is Robin Warner, and I'm going to show you around and inside this car in detail, as well as drive it around a variety of roads to show you how it feels. And this Macan Electric is also the base trim beneath the Macan 4, 4S, and Macan Turbo. But the question is, does this electric Porsche SUV still feel like a Porsche? Let's find out. I review all kinds of cars and I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for this base 2025 Porsche Macan Electric is $79,995. Yeah, just under 80K. And my test car did include a whole bunch of options and cost $89,315. All right, with that, now is a good time for me to pull over and show you around and inside and under the hood of this brand new electric vehicle. Let's do that now. Looking at the front of the Macan Electric, it largely looks familiar to the regular Macan, but a little bit cleaner and simpler. Obviously, there's no grille of any kind until you get down low. And these back here, these are active shutters because there are not as many cooling demands generally for this car. But you do have the trademark sloping front hood that blends into the front bumper and then in till we get to this very pronounced lower front lip spoiler right here. And then the hood itself has a fair amount of articulation built into it. It kind of has a bulge here to meet the headlight assembly, and then when it slopes down, it has little sharper ridges on either side here, but it's nice and smooth at the center with the Porsche emblem right here. And usually I like to show you what's under the hood, and I want to do that again now, but for a slightly different reason. There is no engine under here, of course. What we have here is 2.9 cubic feet of storage space, and you know, that's about it. Looking at the Macan Electric in profile, this gives you a good sense of its slightly slopier shape than the standard Macan. We have a steeper rear windshield rear line right here, and then the roof just kind of slopes, just seems just a little bit more aggressively than the standard Macan, based on my memory at least. This also gives you a good look at the standard color. This is white, nice and simple, and you do have a couple of recognizable traits for the Macan, like this side blade right here in black plastic, but then some new ones like this electric logo right here on the front quarter panel. I do generally like the shape of the Macan and the Macan Electric, and I think if anything the Macan Electric looks better because we have a stretched out wheelbase which gives us shorter front and rear overhangs, and it is a slightly longer car overall as well. I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen so you can check those out and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. You are looking at the base 20-inch wheel for the Porsche Macan Electric, and this is a summer tire, but it is an EV summer tire, Michelin Pilot Sport EV. And yes, this is the base Porsche, and yes, this is an EV, but it is still a Porsche, and that means we have a staggered wheel setup. The wheels in back are much wider than the ones in front. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions of the front tire and the rear tire up on the screen. Looking at the rear of the Porsche Macan Electric, this gives you a better look at this steeply raked rear windshield right here. Also, a couple of options. This rear windshield wiper right here, $380 extra. The trailer hitch right here, $680 extra. Also right here, this is a expandable rear spoiler right here. At speed, it'll lift up like that, but I can show you what it looks like right now. Let me do that. up, down. And it does have a fair amount of space inside. Let's look at that. And that exposes 18 cubic feet of storage in the rear cargo area with all the seats up. And we do have one other option back here. It is the $170 115 volt socket right here on the driver's side. And if you need more than 18 cubic feet of storage and just have you and a passenger, very easy to do. Pull a couple of levers and you have 47 cubic feet of storage. All right, let's look inside. First thing I'm going to do is turn the car on. I don't have to do anything actually, because the car recognizes that the key fob is with me. The car is open, the car is running. You can hear the climate control working already. By the way, you can see here I'm in drive right here. That's how I put the spoiler up and down. To the back. First and foremost, a couple of options. We have the black interior with the limestone beige option, and we actually have those limestone beige seats, and I think it's really nice to get something other than black in the interior. I think it opens it up really nicely. I really like that. $270 well spent. We also have the $490 4-zone climate control package, and I think that is probably money well spent as well to give your rear passengers some added comfort. We also have the $600 optional heated rear seats. I am 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and you can see I have a couple inches of knee room right here. Also, the seat bottoms are pretty high, but not super high. So I have decent thigh support, but not great. All told, that gives me right around a 90-degree bend in my knees. So a little bit less spacious than I hoped, especially being an EV. But on the positive side, even though we have this panoramic moonroof, you can see the privacy panels on right now, I do have plenty of headroom. Of course, I do also have an armrest with cup holders. So yeah, overall, it's actually pretty comfortable in here. I don't know if I'd want to do a full road trip in this car, but a couple hours wouldn't be a problem at all. To the front. You can see that we do have 3-position driver's seat memory right there. We do have the usual controls down low, but we also have access to the front and rear storage areas. And as you can see, you can open and close the rear storage area from right here. We do also have the optional $1,030 Bose surround sound system, and we have the $1,390 14-way comfort seats. And from here you can get a good look at the lower center console area where we have 2 USB Type-C and a standard 12-volt charge port right there. That is in front of the cup holders right here. See, it's kind of open. This upper panel of the lower console ends and has access to that space down there. We do have a couple of controls to the left of the steering to handle the lights, and above that, our push button start, as well as electrically adjustable tilt and telescope right here. Real quick, I should say that the standard seats in the Macan Electric are also electrically powered, but they are 8-way adjustable. Okay, the steering wheel itself is a nice small diameter rim. It is also a good fat rim, easy to grip onto, and you can see that we have plenty of controls to the right and to the left of the steering wheel. This is a heated steering wheel. The button is behind right here. The heated steering wheel is standard on the Macan Electric. But what is not standard, it is a $1,020 option, is the Sport Chrono package, which gives us this dial right here and several drive modes. We'll talk about more of those in just a minute. But above that is our 12.6-inch fully digital instrument cluster right there. Next to that are also standard 10.9-inch center display. And the center display does, of course, include wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Beneath that, we do have our hazard light and traction control options and this door right here, which exposes a wireless smartphone charger right there. Beneath that, the first 2 zones of our 4-zone climate control system, and you can see here that we have heated seats up here. Those are standard, but the ventilated seats right there, that is a $670 option, and it requires the 14-way comfort seats. The standard seats are not available to be ventilated. Beneath that, we have a couple of cup holders and that access to that storage down low that I showed you. Past that, we do have lower center console storage right there, nice and simple. Looking up, we do have controls for the moonroof and for the privacy panel. And it is lovely. And finally, a nice look at our analog clock right there. All right, let's talk drive modes. We have 4 drive modes: off-road, normal, sport, and sport plus. Each different drive mode commands different ride heights and suspension settings and all kinds of things. We do have adjustable shock absorbers. We do have air suspension, both standard. You can also control things like the vehicle level independently. So let me show you the different ride height levels you can have with the Macan. As you can see, we're currently on our low setting, but if I change it to lift, you can now see that we are much higher off the ground. And also, just because we can show you from the side, this is what the spoiler looks like when it's up from the side. I will be spending most of the time in the normal drive mode, but yeah, there will be times that we have to play with Sport and Sport Plus. To do that, we have to get back to the drive, so let's get back to the drive. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. We have a single permanent magnet synchronous electric motor hanging out on the rear axle. It makes 355 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. Not bad for one little motor. It's also the amount of power you get when you're using launch control, when you're asking for everything in short bursts. For sustained horsepower numbers, it does drop a little bit, but it's still 335 horsepower and the same 415 pound-feet of torque. And that is nice electric torque with immediate response, no delay of any kind. That is my favorite thing about electric vehicles, the response. Every single Macan uses the exact same 100 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. It is made up of 12 modules and a total of 180 cells. It is used to 95% of its capacity, so its working range is 95 kilowatt hours, and that's to extend the life of the battery pack. And while every electric Macan uses that same battery pack, the power definitely changes. Every other Macan trim has all-wheel drive, and that means 2 electric motors. And if you go all the way up to the Macan Turbo, you get 470 horsepower and 833 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, just a silly amount of torque. I love it. This being the single motor electric Macan, it is the lightest, and it does have the best range, 315 miles. Though the Macan 4 does awfully well. You only lose 7 or 8 miles of range going with the all-wheel drive version. And just like the Porsche Taycan, this is an 800 volt system, which is good for faster charging times along with some other advantages. Speaking of, you can accept up to 270 kilowatts of charging power, which means you can go from 10 to 80% state of charge in 21 minutes. If you instead use a regular level 2 charger, you can go from fully depleted to completely charged in 11 hours. By the way, I mentioned the weight of the Macan. The weight of the battery alone, just the battery, 1,329 pounds. Yeah, it's heavy. Even though this is the base powertrain, it's still a good powertrain. I mean, it is a Porsche after all. So if I floor the accelerator, I get that immediate response, and then I get good pull. It comes on immediately, it comes on strong, and it just pulls very consistently, very smoothly, and very quietly. And that was in the normal driving mode. If I change it to sport and floor the accelerator again, 2 differences. First, I do get maybe just a little bit more reaction. I got a lot of pull there right away. Second, in the sport driving mode, the electric sport sound turns on. And I don't know how easily the microphone will pick that up, but it's like that Tron motorcycle kind of grrr, kind of like very digital sound coming on. That's not free. That is a $510 option, but it is a fun party trick at the same time. There is one more driving mode, Sport Plus. Floor the accelerator again. I just love that immediate response. It's so good. It's so good. The smoothness of electricity and the response of electricity is always fun. These drive modes do way more than change powertrain functions. In fact, that's the least cool thing they do, but we'll get to that more when we get to the chassis. The other part about going electric is they are way more efficient. We get 108 miles to the gallon equivalent in the city, 90 miles equivalent on the highway, 99 miles combined. Now, that's far from the best you can do with an EV, but over 100 miles to the gallon equivalent in a compact crossover SUV, a premium one at that, pretty darn strong. Of course, while fuel economy, equivalency, and especially range in an EV are very important specs, neither are as much fun as accelerating, especially when you have launch control. Of course, I had to test that. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test, and we are gonna have launch control. So that means we are definitely gonna have 355 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. To use launch control, of course, I do have it in the Sport Plus driving mode. I also have stability control in Sport mode, which limits its intervention. We'll see what it's like. Okay, coming to a complete stop. Foot on the brake, floor of the accelerator, launch control. Oh, there we go. Strong initial launch, pretty potent acceleration, and then it just surges forward. Man, wow. This is the base Macan Electric, and yet 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. And if you keep your foot in it, you will eventually hit 136 miles an hour. That is one electric motor, one speed, a single speed drive down gear, 136 miles an hour, and potent, strong, smooth acceleration all the way through. You saw we had that good initial launch and then just consistent pull throughout. Fantastic acceleration. All right, let's dig into the chassis. This is a Macan by name, but it is a different powertrain and a different platform. It is built from the PPE platform. That stands for Premium Platform Electric, and it also has a different suspension geometry. We have a multi-link suspension up front and another multi-link suspension in the rear. The rear suspension being multi-link, pretty common. Front one, not so much. And the multi-links are arranged in a double wishbone style. So it is effectively a double wishbone front suspension. Pretty darn nice. It is also bigger than an ICE-powered Macan. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions of the ICE-powered Macan up on the screen there. The two biggest differences are length and wheelbase, but the electric one is also a touch wider. Also, standard equipment for the Macan Electric: an air suspension with adjustable ride heights and obviously adjustable spring stiffnesses as a result, and 2-valve adjustable shock absorbers. And 2 valves means there's a separate valve for compression and for rebound, and that really helps tuning. So when you change to the different drive modes, you get vastly different feel. So if I'm in the normal drive mode right now and I turn the wheel, I get good response. The front end responds quickly, but there is a little bit of body roll, and it does, it moves away, and there is a tiny little bit delay. If I go to Sport, yeah, and that stiffens things right up. The steering gets a little heavier, and the body roll definitely reduces. Sport Plus, yes, and that gets properly stiff. We get fast reacting front end, very low body roll, and just a very quick reacting steering. Wow, yeah, that's sharp. And yet, when you're in the normal driving mode, this thing is plush. In fact, in the sport driving mode, it's still plenty comfortable for me. So If you get on a bumpy patch of pavement, you have a lot of ability to work around that as well. Even better, for the spirited driving side of things, this Macan has the $2,110 optional rear axle steering, which is really, really nice. That gives me the confidence to be aggressive with the steering wheel, because I know that at speeds like this, that the rear axle is actually steering the same direction as the front and effectively elongating the wheelbase, making it more stable. And in tight corners at slow speeds, the wheels turn in the opposite direction and effectively shorten the wheelbase and give a much tighter turning radius. Very, very good things to have. This being an electric car, we do have a pretty darn low coefficient of drag. It is 0.26 in this base Macan Electric. That is definitely low for a compact crossover SUV. We're usually around 0.3 for them, maybe even a touch higher. But EVs usually do have an advantage with fewer grills and cooling ducts and those types of things. So really, it's about average for that. You can also, of course, tow in this Macan Electric. 4,409 pounds if the trailer has brakes of its own, 1,653 if it doesn't. But what are you much more likely to do than tow in a Porsche? Maybe find yourself some nice roads to go a little bit quicker. Of course, I had to do a handling test in this Macan Electric. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a handling test. I do have it back in the Sport Plus driving mode, and I do have it back in stability control in Sport. See how it feels. Rear wheel drive, fair amount of torque. Ooh, and storm clouds coming. Yes, good initial pull, to be sure, good pull. Plenty of acceleration from this rear axle motor. Not tons of grip, but great chassis balance. I could really balance the chassis with throttle there. That was nice. Oh, you do get some understeer when you really lean on the axle there, but man, just like any other Porsche, this one is easy to drive quickly. You can get to the limit, you can find the limit and play around with the limit and really enjoy yourself. Wow, that is a great, great start. This is the base electric Macan too. Oh, you can feel the weight going over those whoops, to be sure. The steering was a little bit imprecise there. I have to be honest. That was a little less than perfect. Electric motor torque, electric motor response, doing its job again. So the steering feel, this isn't the best steering feel I've ever had in a Porsche, and we don't have tons of grip here, but what we do have is a very playful, capable, easy to understand chassis that once again does not intimidate. It allows you to get to the limit, play around the limit, and have some fun. The fact that we have lower grip EV tires on this Macan in some ways might make it even a little bit more entertaining, because you'll get to the limit at lower speeds and you can just play around there. There is also a little bit of understeer. The chassis balance isn't perfectly neutral, but the fact that this is rear wheel drive and the fact that you have that immediate response in the torque means you really can balance the chassis with the throttle. You can add power and really push, transfer weight to the back of the car and just let the thing squat and go. For a compact crossover that weighs 5,000 pounds, way more entertaining than I would have guessed. All cars, electric, small, large, all cars are gonna find themselves on the interstate sooner or later. Of course, I had to test that as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody. Time for a quick stint on the interstate. See how the Macan Electric feels on the open road. I do, of course, have it back in the normal driving mode, and I do have all the systems on. Stability control is also fully on, of course. Okay, cruise control is on and set to 78 miles an hour to go with traffic. and we are going through a curve in the road, so I'll take my hands off the wheel now. Now, this does not have lane centering. This has lane departure. And what that means is if you get all the way to the end of the lane, all the way to the far left or the far right, it will automatically correct the steering and hold you in the lane, but not in the center of it. We do also have adaptive cruise control, which is fine and it works fine, but you know, this is on the high end of what Porsche offers in terms of assisted driving, and on the way high end of what I'm interested in when I'm driving a Porsche. It tends to be more of a hands-on experience, and that's what I'm looking for. That said, I do have an assistant screen, and I wanted to show you what it shows me, and there you have it right there, and I'll show you. So if I go to the end of the lane, it corrects the steering and shows me with that red line right there. Also, as I approach traffic, you can see it in the distance there, and you can see that we can see multiple lanes as we go. When you're driving a Porsche, I don't care if it's an SUV or a sedan or a sports car, it's more of an engaging experience generally, and I tend to want to be more involved as a result. On the plus side, when we're talking about core interstate driving, we have excellent cabin isolation. It's nice and quiet in here, very little wind noise, next to none, very low road noise as well. You can hear the road some, but that's because you can't hear the electric motor at all. Also, with the air suspension and the 2-valve adjustable shock absorbers, it's very comfortable in here. Soaks up all the bumps and lumps in the road without any trouble. If anything, it's too soft, if anything. So yeah, overall, fantastic highway cruiser. Oh, and range is holding on just fine as well. So, what do I think of this 2025 Porsche Macan Electric? There are a couple of things that take a little getting used to. This is a more digital experience than any other Porsche I've been in, and that includes the Taycan. And there are some of those, you know, common, like, trendy things of where this car will just start working once you get in and it senses the key fob. If you want it to, it'll lock itself and unlock itself. Little things like that. As an old school driving enthusiast, I find those things to be just the tiniest bit tacky and not part of the special experience of driving a Porsche. However, you can turn those things off in this Macan, no big deal. And you do also have a lot of Porsche unique traits. A lot of attention was paid to the chassis. A lot of attention was paid to the handling dynamics. You have a lot of choice in handling in terms of the air suspension, the ride heights, and the stiffness of the shock absorbers. And it's quick. It is nice and quick, even though this is the base powertrain for this SUV. So, does it still feel like a Porsche? Yeah, a new one, but a new Porsche to be sure. And it feels really, really good. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching.